This video is brought to you by me and the Patreon that I just launched. If you're a long-term subscriber that wants to support me, check out the link in the description. If you're new here, stick around for more info. Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion is a cute, simple, and short game. A classic, top-down adventure puzzle game in the same tradition as that green fellow that is always up to something. All of the sprite art is nice, and the more high-resolution art and UI features are also extremely well polished. And the bright color palettes and secondary animations given to the entire affair lend the game a sort of sleek and low-friction quality that feels extremely professional. In fact, this game is so tight and so well made in terms of pretty much all of its aspects that if you are watching this video and you're a sprite artist or some other type of artist and you want to get into making games or studying modern game design, I would say that studying Turnip Boy would be an extremely good place to start. It's very clear that in terms of understanding the basics of game design, like pacing, progression, and gameplay loops, and so on, the game's lead developer, who may or may not have been working with a small team, has an extremely tight grasp on what makes a game good. The pacing that we see in the puzzles, for example, is masterclass. In a lot of classic adventure puzzle games, like the underrated hidden gem Ocarina of Time, they don't always do the best job of integrating all the items and abilities you get into the game's puzzles collectively as you progress. You get the hammer in the Fire Temple, and you mostly use it in the Fire Temple. You get the iron boots to get into the Water Temple, and then you mostly use them in the Water Temple. This means you kind of end up with a theme park style level design, where you only really need certain items to get through certain areas, which is fine, but you can imagine how much more interesting it would be if, instead of this, different items and abilities you found throughout the game compounded into increasingly complex puzzles that you needed to use your entire set of tools to solve. Turnip Boy does this last one flawlessly. Puzzles start off with simple watering can-based mechanics. Water the bomb flower, and it blows up. But then, eventually, you get to the point where you can push the bombs around. Then, a new kind of plant shows up that grows a block. Then you get the ability to push the blocks around, and eventually you have a portal gun. And every time one of these new mechanics is introduced, rather than being one-offs you need to solve a single dungeon before moving on to the next one, each dungeon is an increasingly complicated series of each mechanic that has been introduced so far. This is a much more interesting strategy to keep the player constantly engaged and constantly using all of the tools that you have given them than the more old-school Zelda-style approach where each new item kind of acts as a key to get you through one area or another before ultimately becoming way less useful. The downside of this is that it kind of artificially limits how long and how complex your game can be. You can imagine if you were playing Ocarina of Time and the game's final puzzle involved Link's entire inventory working in tandem, it would get completely unmanageable very quickly. But for a game like Turnip Boy that is extremely short and sweet, this style of pacing works out brilliantly, both for the puzzles and for the boss fights, which were surprisingly well done. Usually when I play a game like this, I imagine it's going to be an incredibly accessible, casual game, and Turnip Boy definitely is that. But some bosses are also somewhat challenging for what they are. They're just easy enough for pretty much anyone to be able to beat them, but simultaneously just hard enough for them to remain interesting, which is an incredibly difficult balancing act. The writing and humor of Turnip Boy are also pretty well done. It's that same genre of gaming comedy you get when someone is intentionally trying to only be kind of funny. It's hard to make this style of writing feel genuine and not just like a symptom of lazy writers. But in this case, I think it works out pretty well, mostly because it fits the rest of the tone the game sets with its art style and general vibe. Really, the fact that I even bothered to do a video on a game this short and this goofy is a testament to how good of an example of solid game design it is, because normally I would completely ignore this sort of indie title. Turnip Boy is the kind of game you want to play when you just got off a shitty day at work and you want to make a drink and try to be less pissed off for a few hours. But then again, my roommate used to play Darkest Dungeon to relax after work, so this is sort of a subjective claim. While Turnip Boy might be fun to play, I think it's probably more fun if you're an inspiring developer, because like I said, it's basically a case study on how to make the perfect indie game. It has perfect pacing, the perfect length to make its particular style of pacing work, amazing, polished artwork and animations that are exactly as complex as they could be given the scope of the project, and just enough irreverent writing to show you that the developers were taking the game seriously, but not so seriously that it wasn't going to get done on time. Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion is a fun game, sure, but I think it works best as a textbook example of just exactly how to make a game go burr. If you're sitting there thinking, come on Jacob, I waited 2 weeks for a stupid 8-minute video about a turnip game, don't worry. I'm in the middle of running an experiment on my channel, and I have prepared 3 videos that will all come out in a row, one after another. This is only the first one. Tomorrow I'll be releasing a slightly longer video on a game that is significantly less family friendly. And then, the day after that, you'll get even more content to squeal over like the hogs you are. If you want to see more videos like this one, consider subscribing. If you're already subscribed, turn on notifications so you actually know when I upload, and leaving a like and a comment are also very helpful. Down in the description, you can find a link to both my Discord community, which is very active and has a lot of talented artists in it like this guy, as well as a link to my Twitch channel where I stream every single Thursday. You should also follow me on Twitter so you don't miss any important updates. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hello and welcome to the Patreon credits, which is a thing that I do now on this channel. Like I mentioned in the start of the video, I have finally, after a lot of demand, launched a Patreon, and if you're one of the many people that has been bothering me about ways that you can support my channel, this is one of the best ways to do it, and hopefully we will someday get to the point where I can make content independently without needing to worry about things like securing sponsorships and various methods of increasingly violent pagan divination to try and figure out how the YouTube algorithm works. For now, the Patreon benefits are mostly revolving around being able to act smug in my Discord and being immortalized in the credit section of my videos, but hopefully someday I will have enough time to put up some somewhat entertaining Patreon exclusive content that would be available to every tier of patron. The support that I've got so far has been wild, and I want to thank everyone that has showed up already. I'll see you guys in the next video, which, if you're watching this on the day that it comes out, will be tomorrow. And if you're watching this from the future, go watch my backlog, I guess. What do I have now, like 50-something reviews you can watch? It might even be like 70 by the time you're seeing this. The Cyberpunk review is 2 hours long, man. Look at all that content. You could be watching this right now.